Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and this is a really powerful Meteorite Mage build. This is a build that uses full gravity magic and does a lot of damage to a lot of the bosses in the game. We're on max scaling here. There's going to be a whole bunch of bosses in here, different spells that we use, and two different weapons that I like as a sidearm for a Meteor Mage. This is a really fun build. It's a blast to use, and it's incredibly powerful. We'll start with the big guns here first, and in the case of this build, that is Meteorite of Astel. Meteorite of Astel is incredibly powerful. You get it from the second Astel form that's in Consecrated Snowfield. It's in a cave there, it's the boss there. It's basically Astel all over again, except a little harder and a smaller arena. Why is Meteorite of Astel so good? Because it mainly does physical damage, but it can be spammed just like Common Azure. So it does a ton of damage. You can bring it down with the infinite FP flask for a long time, 15 seconds or more, including your own FP bar, and it does a lot of damage. Now, our sidearm here, well actually not our sidearm, but our side spell here is going to be Rock Sling. Rock Sling's going to complement Meteorite of Astel quite well. In situations that we can't use it, we're going to switch to that because that also does physical damage, goes with the build completely, and Rock Sling has really good range and a fairly good amount of damage. And they complement each other quite well. They really do work together very, very well. Rock Sling complements Meteorite of Astel. They're situational for both. But Meteorite of Astel is going to be a lot of where you get your damage from, and Rock Sling is going to be a good complement to that. And this is where you get the Meteorite Staff. It's in the Street of Sage's Ruins, I believe is what it's called. And you also get Rock Sling here as well. I'm going to show you on the map. It's in Caelid. And if you're just starting out a mage character, by the way, you can get all this stuff very early in the game since Caelid's open to you from the starting point. So getting Rock Sling with the Meteorite Staff, which boosts gravity sorceries by 30%, is a very good starting point for a mage. Yeah, so you'll be able to get these very early, and it's a very good complement to the beginning of the game too, having that boost, and you don't have to upgrade the Meteoric Staff, or the Meteorite Staff, almost said Meteoric Ore Blade, which we're going to talk about in a second, because that staff doesn't need to be upgraded. It just scales automatically. No upgrades can be done to it. Falls off in the later game, but you can still get the passive boost by putting it in your left hand, and in this case for me, since it's a late game build, putting Lusats in my right hand to get that high damage with the passive boost. And I really like Lusats here because it scales really well with having a pure high INT build, and then you got that complement, that passive 30% damage from the Meteorite Staff in your left hand that's always going to be there as well, which will even beat something like the Jellyfish Shield. Now, Wing of Astel is a really good sidearm in this case, and we're going to talk about two different ones because the Meteoric Ore Blade is also really cool. There's a couple different ones you can do for this setup, but since we're going for the whole gravity build, I really like the Wing of Astel. It does do gravity damage and increased damage to gravity enemies. It's a fun weapon to use. You can tell here it destroyed the first part of the Fire Giant, and guess what? What are we going to use for the second part of the Fire Giant, the max scaling? We're going to use Meteorite of Astel because Meteorite of Astel can absolutely destroy a large sitting target. It absolutely obliterates them, and it's really excellent against very, very large targets in the game. And as you're going to see here, even though I was back a little far, I probably would have been better off being a little bit closer to him. He still takes almost a full complement of damage, getting hit by a ton of the meteors that are showering down, and he ends up being destroyed very quickly. Goodbye second phase of the Fire Giant with the infinite FP flask. That gives us 15 seconds at least of Meteorite of Astel, and he got destroyed by it. Well, field bosses, you say? Well, I say Meteorite of Astel. Well, a lot of field bosses are sitting bosses, which makes them even better for instances like this. You can use something like Common Azure, of course, and blast them as well, but using Meteorite of Astel is even a little bit more fun in my opinion, and since you get the physical damage, it also gives you a different type of damage, and we're going to talk about how to buff this later if you want to do buffs, because it does work slightly different given the fact that it's physical. We'll go over talismans and all that in a little bit, but as you can tell, sitting targets, which field bosses do a lot, can absolutely get destroyed by this as well. It does a lot of damage to them. They kind of take the full complement of it, and in most cases, in a lot of cases, you might even get a posture break in there as well, because unlike Common Azure, this does posture damage too, and it has some knockback to it. There's a lot of benefits to this, and even a smaller target, as you can tell with the tougher Draconic Tree Sentinel here, not a big deal. Went down no problem, not too hard, and as you can tell, he took a lot of the hits from the meteors, and they did enough damage when buffed to take him down very easily. Now, for specific smaller targets like Radagon and Melania, Meteorite of Astel can actually be really tricky, if not very, very difficult to pull off. In the case of Gideon here, he's not really a problem since he only needs to get hit by a couple of the meteors. He kind of notoriously is easy, and not only that, he has very, very, very low HP in general and resistances. He kind of has like player type resistances, if not less. And yeah, he's not too hard, even though he's a small target. So for Godfrey, I wanted to throw this in real quick. If you guys need help with Godfrey, you ever need help in your mage, you can always use Common Azure, but don't worry about just doing it for the first part. I wanted to throw this in here. The rest of this is going to be all Meteorite based. But as far as this goes, if you use Common Azure when you walk in, usually after the scene, so you might have to die once, you can use the entire beam to destroy his first phase. A lot of times the beam will continue to hit him after the scene, and then just step back a few feet and then use your FP bar, and he's going to go down. This is on the max scaling of the game, and he went down. Very, very easy way to get rid of him. And then I wanted to show what journey I'm at there, just so, because some people ask where I'm at. I was going into journey 10, I think, for this. So basically 9 or 10 for most of the footage here. Everything's got a ton of HP since we hit max scaling like 2 journeys ago. So I threw out a summon for Placidusac so I can get his attention, because I tried this a couple of times by myself, and he's got around, I think, close to 40,000 HP on max scaling, so kind of a little less fun there with Placidusac here. He's a bit of a tank, so I figured I'd throw a summon out to give myself a little more time to use Meteorite of Astel. But as you're going to see here very, very shortly, Meteorite of Astel really destroys Placidusacs, especially larger targets. If you get in enough hits, you'll get that posture break too. And let's face it, once you get that posture break, even on a big tough target like Placidusacs, it does not matter. He's going down, as you can tell the posture break there, and boom, Placidusacs goes down without too much of an issue. Meteorite of Astel absolutely destroys him. It's awesome against him. For this setup, we're using Lusat Staff. We have the Wing of Astel or the Meteoric Ore Blade, both of which are awesome complements to this. We're going to show off the Meteoric Ore Blade later in the video. We also have the Meteorite Staff in the left hand for the boost, Graven Mass Talisman, Graven School Talisman, Ritual Swords Talisman, Dragoncrest Talisman, and then the Infinite FP tier. And the magic tier is not as important because we're primarily doing physical damage. Meteorite of Astel does a little bit of magic damage, but not a lot. So as you guys might know, my mage character is level 200. For this instance though, all we need is like 60 intelligence to get the maximum amount of damage and to be able to do Meteorite of Astel and such. All you need really is around 60 intelligence. You want a little bit of dex, maybe some faith for like buffs and whatnot, some mind, and then vigor. A lot of the stuff is really up to you. I would just get to at least 60 intelligence or over to kind of maximize that damage. Next up here is the Meteoric Ore Blade, which I wanted to talk about. It has, I think it's called Gravitas on it or whatever it's called, and it basically pulls enemies in towards you. You can throw the Shard of Alexandra in the Dragoncrest slot if you want to use this blade. It does bleed damage too a little bit, so that's kind of nice to have on the side. Overall though, this is more of like a crowd control. It can actually be used in like PvP and such as well. For PvE, it's really just okay. It is a cool sidearm though, and it does go with the whole Meteorite like theme, so I definitely wanted to give it an honorable mention. But for me, I kind of prefer the Wing of Astel because the Wing of Astel has a lot higher of a damage cap, and it's almost safer to use in a sense since this is pulling enemies towards you. But again, scales with strength and intelligence, does a little bit of bleed, and then has that gravity damage on the Ash of War. Another one that I want to mention here is Collapsing Stars. Collapsing Stars you can actually get from Radagon's Arena. There's catacombs there if you didn't know that. And you go in there and there's a treasure chest in there that has Collapsing Stars. It kind of acts like Gravitas in the sense that you can literally hit it and pull enemies towards you. Except with this, since it does more magic damage, I think, than physical damage, if not all magical damage, it's a little bit different. And you can actually attack enemies from a range much like Rock Sling. It'll kill them most of the time if it hits all of them at once, because it's a little bit more buffable in that sense, and it's not extreme damage. It's not going to meet the damage of Meteorite of Astel, but Collapsing Stars is really fun to use, so there's an honorable mention there too, and it definitely has a niche use for this build. To sum up, all in all, we went over Meteorite of Astel, Rock Sling, very good combination there. The Meteoric Ore Blade or the Wing of Astel sidearms, Collapsing Stars as well. Excellent build overall, does a ton of physical damage, which is a little bit different for a mage. You can buff it with Golden Vow and Halashipriri for generic boost, up to 40% more generic damage. That will work for physical damage, and then that Talisman setup and everything that we have works great. Definitely be sure to sub if you enjoyed this video. There's a ton of awesome builds on my channel. Be sure to check those out, and I'll catch you guys there.